Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. We're on the test server, and I think we're actually the first person. Am I the first person to do a video on Graazur Irongut, the brand new Void Legendary champion that everyone is kind of foaming at the mouth for very, very good reason. Slight spoiler warning: this champion is insane. What is the deal with this champion? Well, first of all, let's go to his A2 first, which is a 3-turn cooldown, AoE attack. Heals him by 10% the damage dealt. That's nice. But it increases the buffs of all allies by 1 turn. That is really strong utility. One of the most valuable little bits of utility in the game. Make all of your 3-turn cooldown, 2-turn buffs suddenly be full coverage. But it's enemy max HP. This is an enemy max HP hit. So same thing as Royal Guard, same thing as Husk, etc., etc. Massive hit on only a 3-turn cooldown as a Void Affinity champion. Pretty insane. Now, we combo that with his A3, also a 3-turn cooldown AoE attack. Now, the damage of this and also the damage of his A1 are based on defense. But this books to a 100% chance of provoke on a 3-turn and also puts out increased resistance and increased defense on all allies. And that's sort of how he cycles through his skills. He's going to open, well, you can set up his AI to do whatever you want, but I'm suggesting you would open with this one, of course, then go in with his A2 and increase those buffs so that he himself can keep increased resistance and increased defense on your team basically 100% of the time just by himself, which is a massive deal, especially the increased resistance. That is a huge deal for building specific teams. You guys might have caught my Oella video with counterattack and Martyr and all of that for Nightmare Hydra recently. It's pretty insane. His A1 AoE attack again based off defense, and it puts out a shield for 1 turn, just 1 turn, except for this champion. Doesn't put it on himself, and the shield's equal to the, or proportional to this champion's defense. So it's a decent little shield. It's not crazy though. So Hell Hades and his team will come out and data mine the actual multipliers for you, so you can know exactly how much this is going to do. What I can give you is the vibe. My vibe is that it's not like it's not a Valkyrie shield. It's not a Helicath shield, right? It's more like a Duchess A1. That'd be sort of my vibe. So it's quite a nice little bonus. It definitely adds up. It makes a difference, but it's not this massive shield by any means, shape, or form. So all of that goes together. He also has a crazy passive. The passive effect, which is always on, heals all allies except this champion by 70% of the damage received, 35% against boss attacks with no cooldown. This is incredibly strong passive. Vogoth has the same one, but it's only 50% and 25%. So this is substantially stronger than what Vogoth can do. And as we all know, Vogoth is kind of a game changer when it comes to building some go second teams. Also gives him unkillable for 1 turn before receiving a fatal hit. This actually has mattered quite a bit for Hydra. I'm not sure if it's a bug, but if he hits the heads and they've got reflect damage on, he'll basically one-shot himself most of the time. He just one-shots himself with this move, with the reflect damage. So I don't know why that's exactly happening, because I've definitely had like Royal Guards and Husks and stuff do their move and not die. But it's really something to watch out for. You have to be very careful of reflect damage. He will kill himself, but he can survive 1 turn of that. Just make sure he doesn't do it twice in a row. But yeah, we put all this stuff together. 33% defense in all battles aura. Heck of a skill kit. Heck of a skill kit. Now, in terms of how I built him, this is interesting, right? So, I think what is the difference in Hydra between Graazur Irongut here and let's say Acrizia, right? The other Void max HP nuker. What's the big difference? I think the big difference is his A3, that he really wants to have enough accuracy to land provoke. And he also quite wants resistance for that increased resistance as well. That is the big difference between the two. So with Acrizia, you can crank her crit rate, her speed, and her crit damage high and get her into relentless, get her really pumping the damage. Now with Graazur, maybe if you got absolutely god tier gear, you could do that. But for me, I found it simply not possible to get extremely good speed, crit rate, crit damage, and also get enough accuracy, also have relentless, also have decent resistance. It's just not possible. What I've done, I have him in full perception gear. We got 45k HP, 3.5k defense. These aren't too important. You just want him to be tanky enough to not die. It's not really that big of a deal. We have him at 255 speed. We do want him to be very quick. We want him going as fast as possible, really, taking as many turns as possible. 100% crit rate. I have him actually only 231% crit damage. But we have got him up with really high accuracy, 421, which is probably, it's actually slightly overkill. We're about 15 too high for what we'd want. And 247 resistance. We'd actually want this to be higher, to be honest. We'll talk about that more when we come to the team comp, because I think your team comp is going to make a big difference for that. So yeah, I feel like stat-based sets are overall the better way to go with him. You could always run other things though. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts and feelings. What do I have on him? Speed boots. We have him with an accuracy chest. We have him with crit damage gloves. And we're looking for pieces of gear with speed, crit rate, crit damage, accuracy is sort of the name of the game. I think we have him in a defense ring. Yeah, defense ring with defense percent. Got him in a crit damage neck. Again, accuracy and resistance on that would be ideal. And then I have him in a defense banner. Actually, it just sort of depends on what sort of banners you have that are good. I would actually say probably a resistance banner is the way to go, or an accuracy banner. It depends what you're going to have. I think you're going to have lots of perception gear because it's perception gear, you know? So accuracy shouldn't be too bad, and the masteries are stronger. So I would say probably a resistance banner is most likely going to be the way to build him. Ultimately, like when we push further, and certainly when I think further difficulties of Hydra come out. In terms of how I built him up here, I'd actually would suggest going for Defiant instead of Tough Skin. I think that would be a better choice. But these are fairly typical, I would say, Hydra type mastery. So we're going to go all the way down to War Master. Every single one of his hits is AoE. War Master is going to do a ton of damage. We're going to grab him Life Drinker, a bit more healing if he does drop low. Like I said, I would grab Defiant, and then we're going to grab some of the defense tree for some counter-attack stuff. We also do have Solidarity, bit more resistance for every buff placed on our allies by this champion, which scales nicely with his increased resistance. We get a bit of extra value there, and I think that's kind of worthwhile to grab. You could send him down the support tree if you wanted, but I think this is probably overall a little bit better. And let's dive in where we want to see him into a Hydra run. I've tested out a couple of compositions here on Nightmare with Graazur. What I did, I tested this one, first of all, where we have a Mischief tank, and we have him in the lead being boosted by a Shamael. And I also tested out this team. This is actually the team I normally run on Brutal Hydra, and I normally run, what's his name? Turvold in position number 2. So Turvold's working really well with the Hex, working really well with the ally attack, etc. This team right here is what we're going to run him with on Nightmare. What I want you to do is something me and YST always do when we do a collab together. We have to guess. We make each other guess how much damage we think it will do. So let me ask you, how much damage do you think we are going to do with this team? Graazur is a damage dealer, full-on damage dealer, an extremely good one. The rest of the champs aren't super built for damage. Let me actually, to make it easier, let me show you the builds in these champions. So we do have Provoke set on Nekmothar. He's coming in with good speed, bit low on accuracy, but again, he's built for brutal, but it's okay. We've got Graazur. Their presets fairly straightforward. We have Mithrala. Again, presets pretty straightforward, high speed and tanky. We've got Alanicus. She's coming in. We're turning off this move here because we want her just to be doing this with the Reflex set as much as possible. The Reflex set is going to help Companions of Fate cool down, which is an ally attack, and also a turn meter boost and another buff extender, actually. And then her A1 is pumping out continuous heals on herself. So with full crit rate, she's actually a bit of a Mischief tank with really high resistance. We have Ugo, priority 1 on Maelstrom Rack with too much accuracy, and Inquisitor Shamael with Cow the Horrors. He's in just, again, not really a damage dealer build. He's in just to sort of keep your team alive build, which I actually would switch out in hindsight, but it is what it is. One thing, on the test server, we have no area bonuses, which is a pretty big deal, I honestly think, with Graazur. I think it makes a huge difference to him. But yeah, we'll talk about that when we get into the run. Here we go. Let's dive in. I've recorded this already. Let me know. This is the time for you, even just mentally in your head, place your bets. How much damage is this going to do? Place your bets now. You gotta make that decision before we go further. And all right, let's dive into it. So what we've got going on with this team, we have the provoke every 3 turns guaranteed from Graazur, and then we've got Nekmothar in the lead with that AoE. All of his attacks are AoE, who's going to be providing us with provoke set, provokes as well. Great thing too, this ally attack, right, coming in from Lanicus if it procs Graazur, if it procs Nekmothar, they both have AoE A1s. So actually with War Master, it's going to do quite a bit of damage, and it's going to help Nekmothar be a bit more consistent with his provoke as well. Obviously, when Torment comes in, this was an interesting question for me. So question number 1. Is it worth having Graazur in the lead with an Inquisitor Shamael composition? It's certainly an attractive option, right? Because everything Graazur does is AoE. If you don't have almost perfect Veil coverage, which you could do because he's a buff extender, so it's very possible. But he'll get true feared by the Head of Torment with all of his AoE attacks, and you really don't want to miss his attacks. I think if you miss increased resistance, or if you miss the max HP nuke, you're losing so much value. It's crazy. So it's just not something you'd ever want to do. So running him with Shamael, very good. Is it worth having him in the lead? I think generally speaking, actually, yes. Yes, it is. He's one of the best champions you could possibly have in the lead. Now, in this case, I do think Nekmothar is a little bit better. Couple of reasons. Number 1, the speed aura. I think the speed aura is much more valuable than the defense aura. And number 2, because I'm running Nekmo in Provoke set, it's going to just make our Provokes more consistent overall when that's out. And number 3, maybe the second, actually probably the second biggest reason after the speed aura, which is that Nekmothar, he gives us turn meter fill, right? On his A3, it fills our turn meter. And that's actually quite valuable to have him taking loads and loads and loads of turns. Whereas Graazur, he's going to do lots of damage with his A2, but his utility is not really that much better. Like extending the buffs, we shouldn't need to extend the buffs really any much more than we already are. But you can see his hits coming in. I think he's just done his A3. His A3 is like a decent smack, but it's that A2 where the damage really comes in clutch. And again, I have him with about 230% crit damage. We've got no area bonuses kicking in here, and he's maxing out. He's pretty much maxing out the damage on these guys. No weaken either. He's hitting for about 300,000 plus on every single one of these heads with just decreased defense, no weaken. So he is absolutely clapping these heads. He's clapping them. The damage is insane. So yeah, pretty impressive stuff. What else do we have going on in this team? We've got the Hex from Mithrala. That's going to duplicate some of the damage around. She's going to shield us up, keep us safe. Ugo dropping defense, putting out block buffs, cleansing us a little bit too. Yeah, Lanicus is doing the ally attack, and she's mischief tanking, and Shamael is doing Shamael things. Fairly straightforward team. I've shown this team before, albeit with Turvold. So you get the gist. Now, I think other combos that are very good with Graazur. What other champions? Big question number 2. What other champions would you run with Graazur? Who's going to be good? Nekmothar, I think, is particularly good. Nekmothar comes in, and Nekmo gives you basically a lot of the key buffs and debuffs that Graazur doesn't bring. So he brings increased speed, decreased speed, AoE leech, and AoE decreased attack as well, right? That's a ton of really, really good stuff that combos very well with the increased defense and the buff extension of Graazur. On top of that, Graazur's buff extension with Nekmo taking extra turns helps you keep defensive buffs up on Nekmothar more, helps Nekmo stay alive, and the A1 from Graazur again is going to help Nekmothar stay alive. So I think the two of those together, really great combo. I think another really good combo, very strong actually, would be Michinaki. Unfortunately, I did the Michinaki summon rush on my main account, right, on the live servers. But my clan takes CVC very seriously. I think we're actually the #1 clan in the current CVC tournament, which is like in the world. We're the #1 in non-personal rewards, so not really useful, but we are. So I've been saving the Michinaki for ages for a personal rewards tournament where I need to summon him because we're in like a really, really big fight. It just hasn't come up yet properly. So yeah, I've been saying, I think I might just pull him just to have him on my account because it's ridiculous at this point. But Michinaki would be perfect. And a lot of you might have him from a guaranteed summon, that summon rush. You might have picked up the Michinaki. But Michinaki brings in the AoE Hex, AoE decrease defense and decrease attack. Again, 2 key debuffs we want on the team as well. And also burns and ally attacks too. So he brings in a lot. I think you could even run Michinaki in a provoke set plus with Graazur, and you're going to have a very solid way of locking down decay and just doing crazy damage, insane damage between the two of them. That would be really strong. Lady Kimmy might be a nice addition to that, bringing you turn meter control and also increase accuracy, decrease accuracy. So that brings me to the question of increased resistance. Okay, you've probably seen here that in this run, I've not really built around increased resistance specifically. It's just, helping us resist some provokes sometimes, which is very useful. You can certainly build around increased resistance. I did it with Oella to hugely impressive effect, if I do say so myself. That came out too much like a brag, but Oella is insanely good for this, and I think Graazur is going to have that potential as well. The tricky thing with increased resistance, you kind of need to get decreased accuracy out as well to make it easy to build enough. Or perhaps you can do it like with the area bonuses built up a good bit, but it's pretty tough to actually get enough resistance, even with increased resistance for Hydra. So you're looking for a good decreased accuracy champion. So Lady Kimmy's a good option. Mighty Uko could be a good option as well, bringing buff stripping, bringing decreased attack, bringing decreased accuracy as well. He could be a really strong option to put in. Alongside Graazur, the two could combo very, very well together, and Graazur can help him stay alive too. So that could be a great combo. You might be wondering, could I sub Graazur into my Oella team that I did? And the answer is no. Fortunately not, because Oella, not quite replaced by Graazur, not completely made irrelevant. A good choice. She's certainly fallen off a good bit, I'd say, from being the best by miles increased resistance champion. Like Graazur, no question, is the best increased resist champion in the game by miles now at this point. Oella, though, still good. Her niche is that she actually does a ton of healing, like a crazy amount of healing between her passive and her A2, and extending those passive continuous heals, and her raw healing. Insanely strong healer. And that's sort of the problem with my Oella composition, is that she was solo healing the entire team on Nightmare. Graazur, even with his passive, is not going to be, and his A1, he's definitely not going to be doing anything near that level. So I need to rethink the team with him, and we might do that too, bring up a different team. As you can see with this one, we definitely struggle a bit when Graazur is gone. He's like really the only damage, right? So the damage definitely slows down when he is gone. And now you're going to see like the turns really start kicking off when the Head of Torment comes in. But yeah, there you go. That's sort of how this team works, and a few different ideas here. Another quick question you might have, big question, and then we'll jump ahead to the end. So again, be thinking about your final bets on how much damage we're going to have done. Is he as good as Acrizia? Is he as good as Krisk? Ooh, interesting stuff. So hopefully, obviously enough for you. If you got a good idea for how this stuff works in the game, his damage is not going to be near Acrizia, right? Because Acrizia, she's got a 2-hitter enemy max HP, and enemy max HP damage is capped against these bosses, right? You can only do so much damage. So this move should literally do double the damage that Graazur's move is going to do against Hydra. If she hits twice, it will cap out the damage both times for 2 max damage enemy max HP hits. So she'll do more, and then she's got the enemy max HP hits on her other attacks. Double hitter here, so she will do more damage. Now, he'll catch up a little bit. If you built him pure damage, he'll somewhat catch up in the sense if he can do like War Master stuff and things like that, but it's not going to be on the Acrizia level for damage. That being said, what he does bring that Acrizia doesn't is incredible utility for your team. Increased defense, increased resistance 100% of the time. Passive that helps the rest of your team stay alive. A1 helps your team stay alive. And of course, increasing your buffs. That is incredibly good utility. And that makes him, in my mind, actually incredibly good. It's hard to say for sure. I think that there's certainly, if someone came and said to me, he is going to be the best champion, like if they bring in further Hydra difficulties, like Ultra Nightmare Hydra, if you said, I'm betting right now, Graazur is going to be the best champion for that, I think you could probably be right. That's my thought. I think you could probably be right, where that utility is going to be really important to actually have things work. Like you might need increased resistance to build a mischief tank in reasonable stats, you know? You might need stuff like that. So yeah, I think he might be. I think he's definitely up in the conversation alongside those champions. Very similar to, is sort of a merge between Acrizia and Krisk. He brings the Krisk provoke. He brings the Krisk sort of protection in terms of the passive and increased defense is what he does. Krisk does the decrease attack, decrease defense as well, and Krisk does ally protection. So Krisk is going to do more to protect your team. Krisk brings the decreased speed, but it's inconsistent. They both bring extending the duration of buffs. So they both have the 3-turn provoke. They both have increased buff duration. But yeah, I don't know. I think Graazur is slightly better overall because of the damage that he brings. But look, it is time. Let us go to the grand finale, the grand reveal here. How much damage did we do? Let's speed on through and we can see the damage ramping up. Again, 36 million point 6 maybe is what you need to max out Nightmare Hydra. And yeah, you can see we're climbing up and up and up. I think my record before this was about 97 million. Before I think was my top record. So we're actually approaching the turn limit, and people start to die at this point. And I clicked off it. There we go. Let's go back to the end of that. Whoops, my bad. Went through too quick, got too excited. And there we go. The final result, 115.66 million damage dealt. Insane. Again, like I said, this has exceeded my best key by almost 20 million, I think, which is crazy. And this wasn't even a perfected team, as it were. This was just like throwing Graazur in instead of Turvold into my brutal team and seeing how good he would be. He's insane. So Graazur did 55.8 million damage. Like, it's really good. It is extremely good. How good is that compared to other damage dealers? Like I've already said, Acrizia is going to do more. Acrizia is the best damage dealer. I think this is probably pretty similar to Michinaki levels. Like, this is nuts. This is way up there, in terms of top three. Top three damage dealers for Hydra are going to be Acrizia, Graazur, Michinaki. They're the top three, the best three. And then there's a fairly large step down to everybody else. So he's up there, and he brings a good bit more utility, way more utility than Acrizia, but way less damage. He brings, both him and Michinaki bring pretty good utility. Graazur maybe a bit more. Up for debate, but yeah, Necmo, he did 13 million, pretty nice. Mithrala, 21 million. If I gave her War Master, this would do a lot more, honestly. Pretty much all of her damage is coming, maybe a bit from Brimstone, a little bit from poisons. It's nearly all just Hex, right? She's just stealing Graazur's damage with Hex and duplicating it, which is strong. Lanicus not really doing much damage. Ugo at 6.4. Shamael at 13.6. Definitely this team was so tanky. I could have brought in a higher damage Shamael. You saw my Shamael's really low damage. We could do way more with this team. This is a very strong basis of a team. I did do a couple of runs where it didn't work out though, and what you have to watch out for is that Graazur will get himself killed with reflect damage. Like, he will one-shot himself. That's what happened to me a couple of times. He one-shot himself with reflect damage. Just blew up in a single hit, which is pretty bad. Let me see. I did a run on full auto. Here it is. There you go. I did a full auto run with Graazur in the lead. And you can see we did 53.6 million. Again, full auto. That was with no head targeting or anything. Just leaving him on, letting him do his thing. And Graazur did 23.8 million. This may actually be better. You might actually get more out because he's going to do so much damage. But I don't know. It's sort of hard to tell. So, like, I mean, in that sample run, it's going to depend on Head of Torment showing up. Like, he did 3 times as much as Necmo and Mithrala. In the run I recorded here, he did not quite 3 times as much as Mithrala, but much more than Necmo. So it's gonna vary quite a bit, But I think both are viable options, honestly. But there you go. Look, guys, Graazur, is he the real deal? The answer is absolutely yes. This champion is insanely good. Insanely good. Enemy max HP. There's no downside. It's not like it's a really terrible move. This move absolutely claps. Hits super hard. Extends the buffs. One of the best moves in the game for Hydra. And then this move, Let None Pass, is also insane for Hydra as well. Just crazy. And I think that there's a lot of very interesting teams we could build with increased resistance, partnering him probably with decreased accuracy champions, and making stuff work with that. I think there's a lot of cool options there. One weakness, I will say, this passive, you might have noticed in the run we were watching, he wasn't really taking much damage, so this wasn't really doing much healing. Okay? Like, he did a lot of healing. That's nearly all healing himself with his A2, right? He wasn't really healing our team that much. So that's, I think, something that is going to be probably more impactful in Arena, or maybe more impactful against Doom Tower bosses, where it could be very strong. But it's a little bit awkward. Like with a Vogoth, you just build Vogoth with tons of HP. If you build Graazur with just tons of HP like Vogoth, well, he's not going to have any crit rate or crit damage. He's not going to do any enemy max HP, So it's certainly an option. He's like an uber Vogoth if you build him for that. But I think it sort of wastes the rest of what he's doing. So I think that's why this is so ridiculously overtuned, is that the way you're going to build him is going to make this worse. Probably. But it's an interesting food for thought. Anyway, that was a quick first look at Graazur. I just wanted to showcase him in Hydra, which is what I really feel he is designed for with all of these AoE moves and what they do. This is his best spot, in my opinion. I want to show him there. Yeah, look, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.